Hello everyone, so yeah, my name's Ed and today I'm going to be discussing technologies influencing organic search. So these are the main three core areas that I want to run through today. The first two I'd probably say you may have heard of or probably aware of, whereas number three is kind of an increasing area of our technical SEO focus at the moment, and more of the kind of clients we are starting to see at Impression. So obviously with the mobile first index, as a designer, developer, marketer, you'd probably be optimizing towards the mobile first world probably like 2-3 years ago, whereas Google have now focused, well, more than realized that people are searching more and more from mobile devices. The second one is that performance technologies are obviously increasing within websites. People are getting really savvy with optimizing their servers, so websites such as Amazon, eBay are really setting the bar, and people are really becoming more expectant with page speed, whereas the rise of JavaScript is purely how developers are starting to visualize websites now and really integrate JavaScript within websites to make them more not only visually appealing but a lot more interactive too. So to kick off is the mobile first index. So it's actually 1 year anniversary. So this launched in March 2018. They did kind of warn websites 12 months prior to this, saying, look, we're going to start judging your website from a mobile view. The content that you situate on a mobile, whether that be M.dot or a responsive website, you're going to have to update that and make sure that it is suited towards mobile devices. If you look in Search Console now, I'd highly recommend having access to your website Search Console. You can go into each URL of your website and you can see how Google has individually crawled that. You could previously only detect that through crawl logs, whereas now Google individually tells you how your website is being crawled. So even our Impression website, you can see, is now crawled from Googlebot smartphone, so we can automatically detect that our content needs to render from mobile. Our service listing, everything down to internal links need to be served from a mobile point of view. And another area is of Impression. We start to examine a lot of verticals, understand where certain websites are winning, and as Pete mentioned with Currys, we were a big fan of kind of how they started investing a lot of content around their products. They invested in a lot of content that sat within hubs that integrated with their brands and their categories, but they started to take that away, I think, around summertime, and they started investing in really mobile focused pages. So again, as highlighted in the screenshot, you can already see that the web automatically looks like an app. If you go on it, you can go away and see kind of the interactive buttons, how you can shop by the categories and brands quite simply by just the click of the button. It's showcased there, whereas things that are probably more informational is kind of siloed off throughout the page, whereas still having that SEO factor. So automatically you can see Currys adapted their search. They knew that the mobile first index was coming from Google's perspective, and they started to solve for some really major key terms. So you can see here, headphones are very exact keyword with so much search volume behind it, and the correlation towards them implementing this is quite dramatic. So you can see here flying as #1 for the term headphones, and you can actually see that organic traffic growth from July onwards, absolutely soaring up, potentially 2-3 million keywords, increasing that. So you can see that here, whereas the organic traffic increased quite obviously here with the update of that specific landing page, and that's been replicated across their whole website. So this is just an area where Currys could see this mobile first index world come in, and they adapted to it, and obviously benefited from just reviewing how their users searched, understand how they could target users that are searching by device on Google. The next side of things I want to talk about is page speed performance, and this is kind of comes in with two angles. So obviously Google wants to supply, a top 10 or top 5, top 3 results of actually websites that react quite fast when a user clicks on them. But from Google's perspective as well, it's equally as important, because if you can imagine, it actually costs Google money to actually go away and crawl your website. So if you are a website that has maybe 50 to 100,000 pages, it actually takes a lot of the time to actually go away and crawl it. So making it efficient for Google's crawling systems is only going to benefit your SEO strategy. So when I talk about it being two angles, obviously Google want to make sure that users are actually having a good positive experience with a fast loading website, but from Google's perspective, they want to reward websites that benefit their crawler. So when they're sending out that little spider to go away and crawl the website, it's able to go around pages quite efficiently and also frequently too. AutoTrader, the kind of website that we've really excelled in the automotive industry. So it's not a case that they had a sudden increase of organic search, but a lot of obviously automotive websites would obviously be trying to beat them. But they started to adjust their deeper category pages for brand model pages variants. So, for example, BMW 3 Series, and they started to really focus on page speed performance. So the page speed performance got announced as a ranking factor, I believe, in January 2018. So not only is it great for kind of usability metrics, it's obviously great for SEO because it, as mentioned, it only benefits the user as well as the crawler as well. So as we can see here, BMW started having a minimal use of imagery. They actually altered their CSS from their main website, so it was very low in terms of file size. They use a lot of compression across the website, and it's all served on a content delivery network as well, and they follow a very strict regime of how they deal with image sizes across this area. So this is all replicant across all their brand model pages, and not only have they kind of managed to increase organic traffic slightly, they've managed to maintain their organic positioning against other competitors that you're trying to distribute and serve, faster websites and things like that. So obviously a great effort by them, just kind of seeing that page speed factor coming into play and optimizing their website for this performance. Next point I want to discuss, and pretty much the final point, is websites using JavaScript in 2019. You probably have heard of JavaScript, but maybe you're unaware in terms of how search engines handle JavaScript. So if we're looking into websites purely using JavaScript in 2019, Airbnb are a big one. So their website is built on the React JavaScript framework. Cloudflare are on the React JavaScript framework, and also Postmates, which is kind of like the American Deliveroo, are all served on JavaScript framework. So these all fully utilize JavaScript frameworks, whereas most modern websites now would be partially using JavaScript to some degree. So Guardian, New York Times, they all have some kind of element of JavaScript interacting with their website. So in 2014, Google said sometimes things don't go perfectly during rendering, which may negatively impact search results for your website. And just to put it into context, I would say Google are the only good search engine at rendering JavaScript. And like I said, to compare this, I think Google indexed 4 million extra pages of Airbnb than Bing. Google didn't pay me to say that, but I am open to sponsorship opportunities. Another area that I want to go into now is fast forward to 2 years is you may be familiar with the streaming platform called Hulu, but their market share has devalued in recent years due to the increasing of Amazon Prime and also Netflix. But they made the consideration to go with JavaScript just for interactive purposes, to make sure their content is being served on their website that really kind of entertains users. So they started to inject content through their website through JavaScript. If you don't know, they host quite a lot, well, they did at the time, host a lot of popular American TV shows such as South Park, Empire, and they had the rights for these as well. So they actually implemented JavaScript, and imagine coming in the next day and seeing that drop off from just making that decision. So I think that equated towards around 3 or 4 million organic visitors just completely dropping off, and that's literally giving Netflix market value right there, absolutely dropping off for organic traffic, and that was purely through serving content through JavaScript. So JavaScript isn't evil, but there's something that we can do around it to make sure that search engines such as Google understand it better. As you can see here, for a lot of popular American TV shows, they completely dropped off purely because they were serving titles, H1s, category descriptions, and so much valuable content that was helping them rank before, but purely because Google couldn't go away and crawl and render this content, it ultimately dropped off. So as mentioned, Hulu saw a 4 million organic visitors drop off due to this change. They did manage to, gain some traction afterwards because they understood what went wrong. But like I said, it's kind of it's not about understanding JavaScript fully. It's a kind of understanding that, there's a lot of rendering issues with JavaScript. So when you're making that consideration with your development team, or if there's a key decision to be made, just be aware that there's this limitation that can affect organic traffic. But I really want to now just quickly discuss how does JavaScript impact organic search. So as Pete kind of talked upon earlier, there's really 3 factors where JavaScript impacts search. So the crawlability, so a little robot going across your website and being able to find links through the navigation and going through the site structure. There's the rendering possibility as well, so Google going away and rendering your content. And there's crawl budget consideration as well. So as mentioned, it costs Google a lot of money to go away and crawl and understand websites. So optimizing your crawl budget is a massive factor for us at Impression, because we know that by making our websites more efficient, Googlebot will be able to go back to your website more frequently and also go back to it in deeper pages as well. So if you are working with an e-commerce store or a website that consists of 100,000 pages, we want to make sure that Googlebot is constantly returning to your website and going deeper than ever, understanding category pages, understanding product pages, and really making sense of that. Just to compare how Google handles HTML versus JavaScript, we've kind of listed it here. So firstly, Googlebot downloads a HTML file. It starts to extract the links from the source code. It then downloads the CSS files. It then sends all the downloaded resources to the indexer, and then the indexer indexes the page into Google, and then you can be found. Compare that to crawling JavaScript. Googlebot downloads the HTML. It then downloads the CSS and the JavaScript, which is pretty hefty files. Then Google uses their web rendering service to parse, compile, and execute JavaScript code. And when I'm talking about their web rendering services, they use Google Chrome 41, which is a 4-year-old browser. So it's pretty behind in terms of the technology, but like I said, Google probably the best search engine when looking to render JavaScript. Then the web rendering fetches the data from external APIs, and now the indexer can index the content, and now Google can discover new links and add it towards Googlebot's crawling view. So when you compare that to that, it obviously highlights how time-consuming the whole process is. So this introduces this kind of whole new 2 waves of indexing. So like I said, with HTML, you've got the crawl and indexing area, whereas the render solution comes in when JavaScript adds to your website. So it has to introduce a second step of constantly rendering your JavaScript, passing it towards the indexer, and then passing it to the crawl situation as well. So just really kind of highlights how time-consuming it is for Google to go away and understand JavaScript, execute it, and understand what the content is about. So as mentioned, this process highlights how time-consuming it is for Google. I'm going to talk about our experiences with JavaScript and SEO. So last summer, when everyone was going on holiday, I was just sat in the corner of Impression helping websites with JavaScript, and it was really great. We worked with one website, they were one of the UK's largest online tool suppliers, so a competitor of Screwfix, and they were just seeing a quarter of their 200,000 pages being indexed by Google. The website was built on React, the JavaScript framework, and it was nearly impossible for Google to crawl and render. As you can see here, when they made that shift in early 2018, they saw a 40,000 organic monthly visitors drop off. They contacted a range of agencies, and we went in and were able to take the JavaScript issue straight away, and they really bought into that, being the issue. As you can see here, I've highlighted keywords in position 1 to 3. Close to 2,000 keywords dropped off in that ranking range. So obviously it had a massive impact on their business in terms of organic revenue driving through to the website. A lot, like I said, I won't go into too much detail because it goes quite technical, but the things that they were potentially doing, were serving internal links and pagination. That was through JavaScript, so critical areas that Google go away and crawl websites. Major page elements such as canonical tags injected through JavaScript, and also they had no server-side rendering solution. So a way for Google to understand JavaScript now is we actually have technologies that we can set up on websites where JavaScript, we take a snapshot of JavaScript and then it kind of it extracts the HTML and then sends that to Googlebot, so effectively it doesn't have to go away and understand that JavaScript code. It can purely see that HTML, so you're completely cutting out that JavaScript process, and we've implemented that quite a few times for a few websites now, and it's had really positive impacts, as I'll highlight shortly. So automatically we're able to restore that organic traffic to a similar level to where we were before, so obviously the client was really happy with this, and the organic review, you can kind of see that we really provide a return on investment of a 210% increase following that launch of the React JavaScript frameworks from 10,000 to 30,000 in terms of weekly organic revenue. The second project that we worked on was a global search platform for venues and events built on a single page application, and they were seeing declines and kind of a quite chaotic performance around their organic traffic. This was their initial index coverage before they came to us, so we started working with them in September 2018, and as you can see, there was just kind of a really chaotic time of pages dropping out of Google Index. So this is from Google Search Console. You can kind of see the index coverage numbers flying down along with the organic impressions to this website too. Our initial tasks, we, again, very similar to our previous project, we noticed a lot of page elements being served incorrectly, such as redirects, targeting attributes, canonical tags, and also some kind of incorrect setup with their rendering solution. So automatically we saw, a slight increase towards the organic performance, that we knew that this was the positive route to go down. And as mentioned here, we started to see index pages start going back into Google, which is a great sign, and organic impressions starting to fly back up. Unfortunately, there was a change in the environment, so some development changes around the canonical tags were reversed, so we've seen a lot. Pretty much every page that we were seeing on the website was starting to canonicalize back towards the home page, and then also the pre-rendering solution kind of messed up, and we're not sure why, but it basically switched towards a different rendering solution, which was Phantom JavaScript. So it spent me about a week going away and learning about this and understand the changes from here. But ultimately, we were able to get back on track, start fixing all these issues, and now we have kind of doubled their organic traffic that they were previously seeing, and this is purely, again, on the JavaScript framework. So again, it's not the fact that JavaScript can't work in search, it's the fact that many people are unaware of JavaScript and the rendering capability of it. So again, the key point that I just want to discuss today is just kind of being aware that if you are looking to inject JavaScript more on your site, just understand the rendering capabilities of search engines and making sure there are solutions that you're looking to integrate on your website to benefit it. As mentioned with that venue client, as you can see here, this is the recent index coverage, and today we're focusing a lot now on the technical SEO side of things. So again, really focus on Googlebot and how it crawls the website, making sure there's those performance technologies injected on the website so that when Googlebot crawls the website, it's really easy to navigate through internal links, making sure that it's super fast so that Google frequently visits and goes deeper towards our category pages, our deeper venue pages, and starts to index these. And like I said, this has all had a positive impact on organic traffic, and you can see here in terms of first page performance on the organic keywords. So position 1 to 10, we can see going from around 400 now to 600 keywords on first page for the venue client. So yeah, really great results. So what can you do as kind of marketers is, like as I mentioned, just completely understand that there are rendering capabilities with JavaScript. The web has moved away from just pure plain HTML, and we have to understand when you see websites such as Airbnb fully migrating towards JavaScript frameworks now, it's going to be consideration for your development team. So it may be that you're starting off small now with JavaScript, but in the next few years it's only going to increase. So I'm happy to go more of this after the talk talk. I can obviously answer any questions, but there are certain things that you can do on a server level to make sure that Googlebot is able to crawl your website in the most efficient way possible, and also, you know, really get those incremental gains of driving organic traffic, because your website is a high performing, it's super fast, and Google, you know, actually rewards it because it's easy to crawl and it's easy to understand the content. I've displayed some resources here. So Google have done a great guide to rendering on the web. They explain, you know, the issues with it and how maybe it's a bit behind in terms of their rendering service, but they're doing everything they can to catch up with it. So I really recommend that. If you do have the slides, go away and click through to these links. Elevate have done a really good guide to JavaScript SEO. I've pretty much learned all my information that I've been working on my clients through this as well. So they talk about it in greater detail in terms of page speed performance, certain scripts timing out. It goes really in depth. But again, if you are working with a development team, I'd highly recommend you sending them to them link or speaking to us. Another area is view rendered source. So this is a tool that you can plug into your Chrome browser. So again, if you have JavaScript on your website, you can actually compare the raw code that you are expecting Google to see versus the rendered code, and you can see if there's any key information missing. So maybe page titles, canonical tags, product descriptions, anything around that. So again, a really great tool to go away and just see if you're having any issues with that. But hopefully, like I said, I think JavaScript will only increase. It is only going to increase. We're seeing the amount of JavaScript, well, the amount of developers specializing in JavaScript today. I'm doing a lot of talks now with kind of developer groups that focus on JavaScript just to make sure they're more aware of it. So yeah, just kind of educating them on process. But like I said, we only expect our clients to have more JavaScript resources that will try and work with them and help to improve their organic strategy. I think that's me. Hopefully you might have some questions or anything, but like I said, if you did want to learn more about the kind of server-side rendering solutions, I'm more than happy to chat. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ed. Yeah, another amazing example of how sort of advancements of technology solves some solutions but creates others. We've got about 5 minutes or so for any questions, so putting it out to the floor. Has anyone got anything burning they wish to ask Ed? Oh, perfect, fine.
Thank you. I don't know if this is useful to anyone but me. Do you have any clients that work with Algolia?
No. What is that?
So we've implemented it, we probably did over a year ago. And it's basically a really great UX solution. So it's a search functionality on the site, but it also serves all of our collections via JavaScript.
Okay.
Is it likely that that's actually had quite a detrimental impact on our SEO?
Have you seen a decline in organic traffic?
We did, but it was at the same time that we re-platformed completely.
Okay, potentially, yeah. Like I said, there are a lot of great tools out there to see if your website is having JavaScript issues. So that view rendered source may be one. Google's Search Console now has a fetch and render solution, so it may be worth speaking to developers and getting your critical and maybe organic landing pages and going away and getting Google to individually fetch and render them within Search Console, and you can see what content Google is able to pick up. Another great area is using a site command. So go into Google and put site : and then the URL, and you can see if it's indexed. If there are any issues around Google going away and indexing these areas, that will most likely come up. But again, I'm more than happy to recommend solutions around that. There's a lot of tools out there that can potentially help. But yeah, I think if there is a lot of content and links being injected through JavaScript, it's more likely that Google will be having a difficult time to understanding them.
Yeah, because we were told, obviously, Google does now.
Yeah, they say they do it, but they're not very good at it.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions at all before we move on to the next topic? Anything at all? No? Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh no, you're going again. How at the end? Yes, hello.
Thank you. I'm sure I can probably Google this question, but do you have any immediate tips for how we can improve Shopify crawlability?
Shopify crawlability, I think the biggest areas that you'd want to focus on is the first thing what Pete mentioned is around internal linking structure. So as Googlebot, it'll land on your home page, and the way that it acts as deeper pages is is by obviously going through certain links and things like that. There are a lot of great tools to examine crawl depth. What crawl depth is how many clicks certain pages are away from the home page. So I'd really recommend setting up a deep crawl, or there's a tool called Sitebulb, so you can set up free trials of them, and there's a setting within there to view crawl depth. We worked with a client recently where all their priority organic landing pages are at crawl depth 7th, and these are all priority organic landing pages that they want to get in Google search. So understanding what pages are far many clicks away from the home page, and basically making sure within that sitemap structure you're hopefully increasing it more towards the home page for internal links, and making sure that Google is able to access these areas. The other thing is I'd really recommend performance-based stuff. So optimizing your scripts on your website. Use the Google page speed insights to go away and assess your page speed of your website. Like I said, a fast website is not only great for users, but it's great for Googlebot, because Googlebot relies on capturing HTML, all these CSS files, everything like that, and then rendering it and understanding it. So making sure those are super quick, then Google will be like, oh, that was easy, I'm going to go do another page now. So like I said, if it is a huge website, technical SEO is purely focused on now making sure that content is easy to get to and also really accessible for both users and robots. So I'd focus on internal linking structure and making sure those priority pages are higher up the kind of search journey of the website, and also page speed. Like I said, Googlebot relies on efficiency of downloading content and things like that, so really optimizing that.
Thank you.
Cool.